weekend was a good weekend for them. I said, from the weather report, it looks like Sunday. Yeah, I said Sunday looks like it's going to be exceptional. So
Good evening. Welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting of June 22nd. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:35. And the first order of business is the approval of the June 8th minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Yes, ma'am?
Did we not go into executive session?
On June 8th? I do not believe so.
It was the 15th, okay.
Correct.
Sorry. My mistake.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. And then the approval of the June 15th minutes.
So moved.
And a second? One of you want to take it later, so moved and make it into a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And that one is unanimous as well. Thank you. And next order of business is public comments. Is there anybody here to speak in front of the school committee from the public? Seeing none, we move on to recognitions. Mr. Carpenter, any recognitions?
I just want to give a quick thank you and acknowledgement. In fact, before the meeting, Stephen was mentioning the same thing. I just wanted to thank Principal Wilson for the many different award ceremonies that happened at the middle school as we were closing out the school year. I was one of those really nice things to see both the students and the by grade level with their Shark Citizen award ceremonies, and then culminating a couple days ago with the Evening of Excellence that I thought you did a great job of celebrating so many students, but also acknowledging the wonderful contributions of the whole student body. So thank you, and then I know that you'll also be presenting a little bit in a little while the National Junior Honor Society. So again, I think you've done a great job this year, really elevating both the academic program, but also celebrating that excellence. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And the next order of business is reports and discussions. And the first up is the Monomoy website update. Mr. Birch. So you get to present the update.
Excuse me. I'm Jim Birch, Director of Instructional Technology for the district. And we are pleased and happy to have rolled out our new website. We did I guess we call it a soft launch on June 1st, right around June 1st. And then we had a hard deadline July 1st where our old website will no longer be accessible. And we wanted to have a little bit of time to make sure we were able to pull everything over from the old site to the new site. And so it was nice to have that month of kind of a buffer there. So we rolled it out early in June, and the feedback that we've gotten so far has been extremely positive. It's a much, I don't know, it's more user-friendly, it's more visually appealing. It's just easier to find things. It's got a fully functional search tool in it. It's easy to find what you're looking for the most part. The only challenges we've run into so far is just sort of people sometimes get used to clicking through certain links and pages. It's kind of like a habit that gets developed with websites that they use a lot. And we just had a little bit of minor retraining saying, no, that's no longer there, it's over here now. A good example of that is over on the right side. So I'm gonna kind of do this. On the right side of every page, we've got these we call global icons. And so if you hover over these, it shows us all of the most commonly used links. So we put all the stuff that most people are looking for on a regular basis. So everything from bus routes, community link, strategic plan, Aspen, and a lot of people are looking for Aspen, so that's a nice link. Lunch menus, parents are typically looking for that. Staff directory, this is a really nice one. I'm going to kind of deep dive into this a little bit here. This was always kind of an issue before where we had difficulty kind of locating, where certain staff members were on site, which school. We had to update it a lot. It was always kind of a challenge dealing with the staff, finding the staff on the website. And this is nice because it's a database that we created with all of the staff members in the district. And then once they're loaded in the database, you can go through and sort by location. So if you want to find somebody at one of the schools or central office, you can sort it by the school first, and then you can also type in the name here. So if I just typed in and see what happens with type in. I don't know if it will do it. Yeah, and then so you can just type in a last name, and then Mr. Hines shows up as the principal there. So it's just that feature alone is really, it's really handy for parents, especially if they're trying to figure out how to get in touch with a teacher. So that's a really, really great feature. We love that. And then we've got the calendar, and this is something that's a district-wide calendar right now, and we're still working on how we want to do the calendars with each school. But for now, we've got sort of this master district calendar here. And Joy Jordan is the webmaster. She does most of the updating on this kind of stuff, so people will send her information, and she'll go in and keep this updated. And the ultimate goal here is to get the staff members trained at each school so that they can keep things updated the way they would like to have them updated, keep everything current. So we're working on, Joy's been meeting with people at each school, training them on how to use the website, creating an account for them, and allowing them to get in there and make their own updates. So that's the calendar, and let's see. I've got the lunch menus, of course. Parents are always looking for that. Right now, we just have them posted up as Word docs. We'll turn those into PDF files so that it's a more universal format for people to use. And we're looking at a way to maybe make this a little bit more visually appealing, where that you can just kind of go to the lunch menus and see kind of a little bit nicer view of all the menus at each school. But that's something we're working on. And then the contact information, of course, we just want to have all that easy to find. Let's see. Oh, up here, we wanted to make it easy also to find each school. So the way this works is we've got one district site, so it's kind of like the umbrella, the district site, and then each school actually has its own separate site underneath, kind of under the umbrella of the district. So if you go to any one of the other schools, they look very similar, and we wanted to keep the overall look consistent. So you'll see up here in the header, you've got the logo that stays the same, but then the name of the school will change here. And each school can customize what goes on with their site. So it's kind of a nice feature where each school has a little bit of autonomy in terms of developing their own site, but it stays consistent and it stays within the framework of the district. Pictures are awesome. I mean, it's just, people have been giving us lots and lots of pictures. We solicit all the time to the faculty and staff. They send us your pictures. So we just have this huge shared folder of pictures where we just keep putting more and more in. We're going to try and rotate them on a regular basis so that it doesn't, we don't want it to feel stale, we want it to feel fresh. And just some really great pictures are popping up, and we're really thankful for everybody who's contributed to that. And then, so each school has a kind of a similar look, and then there's, these are called channels, which are kind of like the main links. We tried to keep them pretty similar at each site. We wanted to just create channels that made sense for each each school, like the high school would have slightly different channels maybe than the elementary schools. For instance, the high school has athletics, whereas you wouldn't find that in elementary school. So we wanted to really think through, like, well, okay, elementary school has certain types of activities, certain types of information that people are looking for. So we wanted to kind of customize it that way. And all the schools will have curriculum links. Of course, that's important, so you can find out curriculum overviews by all the different grade levels. And this kind of information, we think it's really important as a kind of an overall vision or concept behind what the website should be doing. And we really thought hard about that. We realized that the website is really kind of our PR vehicle for the district, and it's the sort of the public face, digitally. And we wanted to really put it together in a way that gave the information for families, not only in the district, but families maybe looking to come to the district. So we really want to make sure that it's up to date, it's fresh, and it's got the information that people want to know if they're thinking of sending their child to Monomoy. So we really keep that in mind the whole time when we're trying to add content and put all the channels and the links together. Parent resources, again, I don't need to click through it all. You guys have access to this, so you can definitely take some time and click through it. We try to keep the news channels relevant. And again, Joy Jordan does a lot of the updating on the news feed. And you can see when you go to the news section, it'll have the top 3 most recent stories, and then if you click view all, it opens up a much kind of like the sort of the library of all the different news events that have happened. And they just sort of go in chronological order, and when a new one goes in, it pushes the other ones down. But you can kind of go back and see a history of the different entries that have shown up in the news. It's another nice feature. It's got the translating built in, so the different languages. People can choose the languages. That's become a real challenge nowadays with so many different languages being spoken all across the Cape. And so now somebody can find the language that they need to translate a page, and it goes into Google Translate and it translates the page. So that's a nice feature too. And there's always the district home button, so you can always find a way to get back. And then now everything is in a different language. So I have to remember, how do I get back to? Oh, I'm in the translate page. So you can basically just if I close out the translate page again, to go back. So back to home. Yeah, we've got all the main links on the district page here: parents, student services, human resources, again, curriculum, school committee. Of course, that's super important, right? And we have that, and then just a lot of information about the district here that people might be looking for. And on each page, on each home page, we've laid it out basically the same, where you have the pertinent announcements on the left, what's going on, and then the news feed on the main section there in the body of the page. And then at the bottom of each page, or towards the bottom of each page, we've got the Facebook and Twitter feeds, which we found very popular with the parents, especially at Facebook. A lot of the parents are on Facebook. And then and Twitter's becoming more popular with the parents. Kids are definitely on that. And we found that there's just a lot of people are looking for that quick information that they want, and Facebook and Twitter, the feeds there really cater to that group that likes to get their information that way. Another nice feature is we can embed video right onto the page here. So we have a school committee, like the most recent school committee meetings are embedded right on the page, so you can just click right on the link there. Opens up the most recent meeting, you can watch it right there watch it over and over as much as you want. So, and that's nice. And then we're working with Steve Cass to develop like video feeds at the school, at each school as well. I don't know, we may have set up something at high school already. Let me just see if I can jump over there real quick. And yeah, I've got MRHS TV here. So this is their, this is the high school's kind of TV club page here. And you'll find links and embedded videos to some of the stuff that they're doing here. But the idea is we want to have, we want to expand the digital media production throughout the district so that each school has its own little TV studio, so to speak, where they can kind of generate their own content about what's going on at their school, and then we can feed it into the website and have some video feeds for each school that's unique to each school. And we thought that would be a really nice feature. So that's up and coming. We do have a event search feature here, which is nice. That was something that was kind of lacking on the other site. So when I search school committee, nothing comes up.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe.
Check that one
This
later.
presentation just formed.
Search feature, I'm not sure what we want to search for. Start creating one or something like that. So, this is embarrassing when the search feature's not working the way I wanted it.
Spelling
Oh,
error.
it does, actually. Yeah, former English teacher.
Apparently you need to know how to spell to search.
Yeah. Let's see what happens when I do. Should have checked this out before.
Oh, for three.
All right, moving on.
Like saying,
Oh, so it's out, right, that makes sense too. Yeah. Let's see, let's try
Try
that.
district home and then,
Anyway, you get the idea. Let's see if I can completely embarrass myself here.
nope.
Yeah, okay, all right, I gotta find out what's going on with that, sorry about that. So I won't brag about the search feature. So that's just a quick overview. The next thing that's coming up that's really exciting is there's a mobile app that goes along with this that it's kind of an integrated package. And the mobile app connects with the website, and it also connects with the emergency messaging that we have in the district right now. We call it Connect Ed or Connect 5. And so when we send out mass notifications to the parents, say there's a snow day or there's any kind of mass notification we just send out, right now we go into a separate program and we send out the notification to that. With this package, it integrates with the website and with the mobile app. So when you put in a message in the system, it pushes out automatically to the app, to the website, and also sends out the email or the phone message. So it's kind of a, you do it once and it just goes out to all the different ways of communicating with the parents in the community. So that's really nice. Oh, it puts it on Twitter and Facebook as well. So it's just kind of this really nicely packaged, convenient, you put it in, put the message in once and it just automatically populates to all the different ways that message could be broadcast. So that's kind of, we're working on that right now. We've had several phone calls and training sessions with the Blackboard, who's the company that's helping us with this, and we're looking at August 15th to roll out the mobile app, and that will just simply be the parents can go search on their iPhone or on their Android, and they can just install the mobile app from Monomoy. It'll have the shark logo and say Monomoy on it. And once they've got the app, they can customize it. They can get their students' attendance, they can get lunch menus, they can get, there's a whole bunch of data that the parents can access through the app. And, grades, they can check out the grades on Aspen. And so we've discovered that there's just a handful of things that the parents are always looking for. So it would be, attendance, typically grades, and bus routes and lunch menus, those kinds of things. So they can customize the app to only pull that information that they want. And it's really, really nice. It'll be a huge, huge boon to the communication in the district. And I think it'll cut down to a lot on just phone calls and questions about where do I find this, where do I get that information. So we're really excited about that. We're going to roll that out August 15th before the start of school. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. That's pretty much it. Unless you guys have questions, that's just a quick overview.
Any questions? No. Other than the search bar, I think it looks great.
Yeah, sorry. I'll check into that right
I think
away.
it's really easy to be able to find the information that you need, and
Yeah.
it's very clear.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it looks great. I love the pictures too.
Yeah, the pictures are great. They really look good. So just keep sending those pictures in, and we'll keep putting them up there.
All right.
Okay?
Very good. Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
And next up, we are going to have Mr. Wilson with the Monomoy Regional School, Middle School National Junior Honor Society.
Good evening, school committee members. I'm standing in for Darlene Coy and Leslie Botsford, who are the two sponsors for our National Junior Honor Society. Giving just a quick overview of our first induction ceremony. This is an inaugural year. We have not had an NJHS at Monomoy Regional Middle School. So the purpose of the NJHS is to create enthusiasm for scholarship, stimulate desire for service, to promote worthy leadership, generate high regard for citizenship, and encourage the development of good character in our students. Selected students must meet the required standards in 5 areas: scholarship, leadership, service, citizenship, and character. For their academic, the scholarship piece, they have a minimum of 2 terms as a 6th or 7th grade student in Monomoy Regional Middle School and hold a minimum cumulative GPA of 3.87 for those 2 terms. The highest GPA you can have is a 4.3. That would be an A+. 4.0 would be an A. And you need to reach a 90% threshold of that 4.3. That's where the 3.87 comes from. Those students who meet that very high bar are invited to complete an activity form that provides the faculty council that's responsible for actually identifying students who will be admitted into the NJHS with information on their service, leadership, character, and citizenship. And here's some of the notes right out of the student activity logs with regard to the highlights of what some of our students did to demonstrate their citizenship and character, et cetera. Building playgrounds, shoveling for their neighbors, working in church programs for some of our young students, working as student representatives for the open house when we have serve for our back to school night and our step up day. We have students who actually make presentations to parents that evening. Serving dinner at the Noah shelter, entertaining residents with singing and dancing at a local nursing home, serving as mothers' helpers, mentoring young girls in the Girl Scout troop, volunteering at the library. And as we go forward, we're actually we're starting to build a database where students who do service to the school that we can recognize will get a formal letter from my office, and we'll actually document that. So we'll have a running record of the service they're doing, not only in our school, but also out in the community, which is good. This is just going to get better and better. You're going to see photos of them doing work both in the school and outside the school, and we'll have a nice log to be able to back up our induction ceremony expectations. We had our first induction on Friday, June 9th. That was one of the ones that Mr. Carpenter mentioned to open up, and we inducted 22 6th graders and 21 7th graders into our newly formed chapter. Here's a little peek at our first induction ceremony. It was a very nice affair. The kids did wonderful. It was very formal and honorable sort of evening, but the parents really appreciated it, and I know the kids were very excited to be inducted into the National Junior Honor Society. This one we did in June because we just got the chapter approval as the year went along. In the future, we'll be doing our inductions in probably March-ish, February-ish. Right? So at that point, the students will have a chance to have enough record academically and then still be able to be members for a while It's a bit frustrating for our 7th graders because they're really only members for about 2 weeks before they move to the high school. And that's kind of my next slide, one of the things we're going to be doing. As we move in the future, the members are going to meet bi-monthly to have conversations about what they can do within around our school for opportunities for leadership. They will participate in one or more service learning projects per year, so we'll capture those, I mentioned, in kind of their log of service. They'll have a responsibility for choosing, participating in their own service project, which reflects his or her particular talents and interests. There'll be 2. One that we're doing as a NJHS, another one that they're doing as an individual. And then we're coordinating with the High School Honor Society so that our students can continue to serve as Honor Society members in 8th grade and beyond. So right now, they get back inducted in again at 11th grade, I believe. So we're looking to have a continuity from grade 7 right through graduation. So it's a terrific evening, and I don't remember. I'm trying to remember if any of you had a chance. If I missed any at the induction, I apologize. But I do have the program for the evening, so you can see who was inducted. So I can pass that down to. There's one for each of the school committee members who are here this evening. And I think that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Ms. Stout?
I just didn't quite get the math of that.
Sure.
You said that it would be an A+ if it was, I don't know, 4.3, I think it is. And so in order to them, I mean, when I was inducted in the Junior Honor Society, you had to have an 80 or above in everything. So that was real understandable. Would this be equal to an A-, or what is that equal to?
Even stronger than that, because 4.0 would be an A, so it would be it would be in between an A- and an A on your average.
And so, what percentage of the kids achieve that? Of the
43
grade?
students out of the grade 6 and 7 student
Right.
population.
Is that,
We have approximately 240 students in the grades.
so maybe 20%?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I
260.
I think it's more than that achieved the, I think,
Academic threshold.
achieved the academic piece.
We did have more than that achieved the academic piece, so we invited every student. I don't have that count for you. Every student that achieved it, we invited to complete the student activity log that shows character and service, et cetera. Some students chose not to complete that log. So for me to give you an exact count, I can get back to the school
No,
committee.
that's good
on
enough.
exact
Thank you very
numbers.
much.
But it was higher than the 43 that actually chose to finish out the work and go through the application process.
And I raised that only because I had one of those that achieved the academic piece, and I actually appreciate Mark having the kids go through this process, because I think where she wavered is, did I do enough service? And I think a really great outcome of this is to see this organization start to develop more service opportunities for the students to get involved in, so that in the future, hopefully more kids who meet the academic threshold have also been getting pulled into service things that they can, on their own, say, okay, here's examples of service that I've been doing.
That's the
Ms. Richardson?
Just to piggyback on what Mr. Carpenter said, I have never heard of this at this level, and I was wondering, how common is this, and how did you pick up on it?
Wildly common. It's in every state, District
middle
of
school?
Columbia. It is in Canada and in a couple of provinces, so it's actually an international organization, even though they call it National Junior Honor Society.
For a long
it cuts
time?
across. I'll get back to the date, but I'd say decades anyway. NJHS has been around for a long time.
Ms. Stout?
Also, how often are the kids told about this so they would be maybe working towards it?
We'll have this in our student handbook. All the ways that you can earn recognition through the different avenues in our school will be in the handbook. And obviously, this is our inaugural year, so word of mouth helps. Our 6th graders, now 7th graders, will will share that with their peers, and we'll build off of that. And as we get a portfolio and begin to present to students in the fall, this is something you can work towards. Here are some of the service activities that your colleagues have done in the past, your peers have done, and share some of the notes that I shared with you on the board. So it's not, they get a sense that it's a pretty broad brush in terms of what they can do for service.
Because I love the service idea. I think that the kids, if they, and not just the kids, but their families, if they knew about it and it was brought up every marking period, or maybe midterm, they might have a rush to try to achieve something more.
We will do everything we can to market, including me being here tonight to kind of share it with the community.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Russell?
Great job, Mark. I was a very proud grandparent of Declan being there. I didn't realize I could make a list in my own home of things he should be doing on 8.
We would be happy to reinforce that.
I'll follow that up, but I was, we all can say, you can't affirm these kids enough, and to celebrate things that are going to go on for a year or 2 or 3. At that age of 11 or 12, they get a glimpse of what pride means in their life, and I gave him a choice. He can go to the Embers for pizza, hot stove, or DQ. Thank God he chose DQ. So it was just a great evening, and I think it made a great impact on those kids.
It's been a nice stretch. The superintendent mentioned the 3 different things we've done. They're fairly formal. This one on June 9th, then we had 3 Shark Citizen breakfasts where we honored 131 students, total from grades 5, 6, and 7 who had met the criteria for our Shark citizenship. And then at our evening of excellence, we had 99 additional students that we had honored. So we're really trying to capture both academic, really doing 3 ways: academic accomplishment, character and citizenship, and the growth. So those 3 prongs, we really try to catch as many students as we can, making progress and celebrate them whenever we can.
Any other questions for Mr. Wilson?
One other gift for you tonight, I brought the Evening of Excellence program as well. It's just informational. It gives you a list of that, awards that students can receive, what the criteria are, and who receive those as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving along, we have discussion on a report on school councils and ed reform. Is that you, Mr. Carpenter, or?
Yes. So,
Mr. Carp?
so in your packets, I copied the entire DSE's website that refers to school councils, and just to give this committee some feel for what school councils are, because I know we've had a presentation, from Robin on the school improvement plan, which is an outcome of the school councils, but just want to make sure that that everybody at a table has a feeling for what they are. So in 1993, the Education Reform Act in Massachusetts brought about a push for site-based decision-making. And as part of that, the thinking was, let's make sure that schools have school councils, because if you have teachers, administrators, parents, and community members all working together, you'll see better buy-in than if it's just management alone coming up with ideas on how to improve schools. And if you bring those parties together, hopefully you'll engender support for initiatives that are happening at the site-based or building-based level. So the law requires that each school should have a school council. It gives the principal the responsibility of defining and bringing together that body, and it gives school councils really 2 focuses. One is the school improvement plan, and the other is to review the budget and to really think of this as how can we go and improve the school and drive sort of some of the school's budget towards that school improvement. The law also defines what a school council's composition is supposed to look like. So they emphasize parity between staff and parents on the committee, so that there's an even distribution of parents and staff on that committee, where you have the school principal is one of the members of staff on that body, but they also emphasize that there should be community representation on that, and that it should draw from, if we're looking at a high school, maybe it's community partners that have a vision of what comes next for students if it comes to college or the workplace, or internships that might be available in the community. If we're talking about an elementary school council, maybe bringing in partners that have connections to the preschools, preschools in the area, might be partners that could be part of those meetings. And in some cases, it may be a parent whose child has aged out of the system, but has deep community connections. There isn't any clear delineation in the law on what those terms should look like for the positions. That's something that school councils can define themselves. So they might be 1-year terms or 2-year terms, but ideally the school council should kind of develop a consistent way in doing that. It's also important to note that while a building might have assistant principals, the assistant principals can be at a school council meeting because it's a public meeting, but the assistant principals don't have a seat at the table. It's the principal plus teachers plus parents, plus community members, and then the other thing that the law talks about is that ideally these individuals are elected to roles. And I think sometimes the challenges in school systems, and I think our school committee kind of reflects that, is that sometimes ideally you want to say that the individuals are elected, but sometimes you have only enough members running to go and fill the seats that you have. So that's, so I would say what we should strive for in any school council is to sort of engender enough excitement and enough interest that ideally you've got more parents that are wanting to be on that school council, or more of your staff that are wanting to be on the school council than you've got slots. I think that's the ideal, much the same way that I think the ideal when it comes to the school committee is that we've got so many people that want to run for the school committee, but that's I think where we want to kind of get to from on both from a committee perspective, but also from a school council perspective, so that ideally those slots are peer selected, that that you've got a ballot with 10 parents on the ballot for 6 seats on a school council, and you run that ballot at curriculum night. And if you are you could even do this at the elementary level if you want to have a student who is a representative, that maybe it's the ballot that's coming from student government that's leading to to a seat on the school council. The law does require at the high school level that students have to be, at least you have to have at least a student member as part of that school council. And in most schools, that student member is coming from the student government group to the school council. In terms of the school committee's roles with school council, the school committee has the role of each year having the school improvement plan presented to the school committee. The school committee plays a role in accepting school improvement plans, but it doesn't have to accept the plan that's presented. The school committee could push the plan back to the principal and say, there are some things that I'd like you to reconsider, rethink, and have the principal take that back to the school council to to wrestle with. So there's, so the law gives the school committee sort of that final approval and the ability to, sort of say, take the school improvement plan back, reconsider, readjust. The school council meetings are public meetings. They're subject to open meeting law, so they need to be posted. Minutes taken and posted. The guidance that I gave you also has some suggestions on things that school committees could do with school councils. A school committee could come up with a process, by which the school councils would make or present the school improvement plans. Sort of what's that process? What's the timeline? When does it happen in the calendar year? The school committee may suggest targets of membership. Particularly if a school council isn't representing the diversity of either the community or the school. The committee has the ability, I mentioned that the law's silent on terms of school council members, but a committee has the ability a school committee has the ability to use their judgment to say, okay, 1 year's a good thing, 2 years, or what makes sense. So school committees could act to define things like that. And again, a big thing is that school improvement plan is the school committee can go and provide feedback and request for additional items to be considered in a school improvement plan. So I think that gives an overview of what school councils are, what their role is, and I know that we've heard Robin's presentation. I think of the buildings we have. I think Robin's school council has been over the last couple of years probably the largest and most consistent of the school councils in our building. And I think that in many ways that's a testament to when Adam O'Shea came there in his interim year. Adam helped resurrect a school council within the building. So, so there's, there times are ebbs and flows in membership, but I just want to acknowledge that that the school council group that Chatham Elementary School has been a consistent one for a number of years now.
Any questions on school councils? Ms. Richardson?
What happens when schools do not have a school council due to lack of quorum or inability to get community people? That's the law is to have a school council, so I'm confused that.
I think it's up. I would say on my end, it's up to me to push back to the principal and say, reach out, bring in more voices to the dialogue.
But that requires a plan. It's like if I said I wanted to lose 10 pounds, it's not going to just happen. I have to have a plan about how I want to do that. So how do you establish the plan?
Yeah, I think it starts with working with the principal and then having them work within a school improvement plan to sort of set targets on what do they want to achieve or see.
It seems more like an objective, though, as far as, it's not an action plan of, I'm going to, send letters to these businesses.
But I think part of that is, I think implicit within that is how do you go, who are you going to pick up the phone and call, or can you get somebody from each grade level to come to consistently to a meeting to be part of budget improvement discussions.
I just get nervous when the word implicit is used, because for a whole year, it seems that we haven't had a quorum at one of the schools, and that's... Anyway.
Mr. Duvall?
My slippery slope to being on the school committee was starting out being on a school council back in the 90s.
I've been on them too.
And I was solicited by the principal, and this is in the beginning, and his procedure was to find the parents that are very active in their students' education, and those are the people I want on my council because they're going to fight for all the kids. So that's where the plan starts. You know, to get people on your council, because most parents at that time have young kids and going in a bunch of different directions, and they just need a little product.
But Chatham has the number of parents and people.
And they need a product.
Pardon me?
And those parents need a product.
You know.
To start with, they needed prodding to begin
Oh.
with. Now they're
Now
incorporated.
they're very active. It's
Right.
great.
So you don't think that can be cultivated?
I think it can. I don't want to disagree that it
All right.
can't. I think that that's something that can, that can happen. I know at the middle school level, my first year in the district, and we had some, I'll call it nervous excitement at the high school level when it came to school councils, because there was a lot of unknowns about, is it going to be like the Chatham GPA, or just what would the graduation requirements be? And I think there was some nervous tension that actually got a number of parent voices to come to the table, and we followed up this joint high school council meeting where parents actually showed up with a middle school joint school council meeting, and I heard there wasn't enough anxiety about what the middle school is going to be like, that only one parent came, and so again, I think when Mark took over at the middle school, I think he took his time and figured out who were those parent voices that he can pull in, and has started to have some good consistent membership, much the same way that that Robin's benefited over at Chatham Elementary School.
Ms. Ryder?
I have two topics. The first one is, if I'm understanding what you're saying, Mr. Carpenter and Mr. Duvall, in answer to what Donna was asking. You
Can you
can't hear?
pull that mic closer
I
to you?
can, yeah, I will. I was trying to speak loudly. Okay, so I have two topics. The first one is that if I understand correctly, in answer to Donna's questions between Mr. Duvall and Mr. Carpenter, if in any of the schools there is a problem with the formation of the school councils or the membership or the meetings or anything, or we don't have what's required by law as far as representation, then, bless you, you're saying, Ms. Carpenter, that it's your responsibility to push the principals to make that happen, and it's the principal's responsibility to actually reach out and, if necessary, solicit people to be on these school councils. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my next topic is, so I think we know what's been going on in Chatham Elementary School, and you've mentioned Dr. Mellon's school council and how successful it's been. What about the other three schools? What exactly is the status of the school councils at the other three schools? Because we haven't, that I know of, really heard anything, heard about meetings, heard about what they've been doing in the other three schools.
Well, I think we have school improvement plans coming tonight from Harwich Elementary, and I know Principal Hine can talk about his composition meetings, and I think in our upcoming meeting we have middle school and high school coming that can talk about who it is, and and how, how the membership came to be.
Okay, so we will have within the meeting and the topic of school improvement plan, we will hear all about the school councils, who's on it, the meetings and all of that, is that correct? For both tonight and the other two schools?
Well, the school council, they're posted online on the
Yeah.
website, and the minutes have been posted as well.
Okay, I had trouble finding them, that's all.
But
Try
yes,
again.
that can get covered in each of the presentations.
Okay.
Just one,
Mr. Russell?
Thanks, Chair. Just a clarification after reviewing this, and pretty thorough explanations for the questions. On one of the next to last pages, the question is, does the superintendent have to approve the school improvement plan? And it says "are silent." Then it goes on with a variation of may or may not be, but I think it probably for our purposes, I would think it would be far swifter for us and clearer if all of the school improvement plans prior to coming before the school committee had the superintendent's review and yes, hey, have you thought of whatever it might be, so that when it's presented to the school committee, the superintendent has sort of agreeably stamped it as this makes some sense to not only the principal, but also the superintendent. So we then can either say, catch something, or have you thought of this, or as opposed to having it just presented to us with the superintendent not having. And really, it's, the superintendent is the prime evaluator of the principals. And probably one of the goals of all the principals to have a clear and consistent school improvement plan being presented. So to me, that makes sense, that we would expect that the superintendent would just have an opportunity prior to our meetings to say, yes, here's the final school improvement plan document from School A, and I've looked at it, and to me, it seems to be reasonable and effective.
Ms. Stout, then we'll go back to you, Mr. Russell.
As we were just reading this, I had realized that several years ago, we used to approve the school improvement plan, but we haven't recently.
We just approved Chatham Elementary's.
We just did last time.
Well, she presented 2 meetings ago, and we approved it at our last meeting.
Okay. And it's
We
not,
haven't seen the other schools, so tonight we're seeing Harwich Elementary's.
and will it,
We'll see
Action
the
item
middle
next
school and the high schools hopefully at our next meeting.
so when do these have to be approved by? Because it says on there if they aren't approved by 30 days, 30 calendar days.
After being submitted to us. So it's been submitted to us, so now we have 30 calendar days to approve it,
Okay.
or not.
It's a little bit.
That's my interpretation. I don't-
So, in a bigger view, I would assume then that when the school committee makes our goals 1 year, then the next year it would follow along that the school improvement plans would incorporate that a year, because obviously we are doing ours after.
Well,
So-
this school improvement plan is from going over everything the preceding year. So this is using what from, I'll let you go.
I was just going to comment that, ideally, the school committee is setting goals that it has the locus of control over, and the school council would be setting goals that from the school that they can control. And what Terry was suggesting actually happens, that a lot of times the school improvement plans or aspects of it will get bounced off me. And one of the things that I sometimes have to push back a little on is that there may be a want for something in the school, in a school improvement plan, or that, an idea for a school improvement plan item that involves other things, like so it would involve changing the teacher's contract, which so then it's sort of like how do we phrase it so that so that we can head that direction without coming up with a statement that might be beyond the locus of control for that.
Well, actually, that hasn't been my experience in the many years I've been on the school committee, because we've put in our plan stuff about reading and math, and that we would be the leadership on moving forward with many broad things, not deciding what reading program it would be. That's all I'm thinking about, because just the order of the way things work seems a little confusing.
Ms. Ryan?
As a short answer to Ms. Stout's question, the school improvement plans, it was my understanding, are to support the strategic plan.
Yes.
Which, yeah, right. So, I mean, that's essentially what it is, and it isn't backwards.
And I think we also can't lose sight that the school improvement plan should also be informing the budget. And conversations that I've had with Sam and Mary is that I feel that we need to shift our thinking on when school improvement plan cycles end. I would say in many ways, ideally, if you're coming up with a plan on here's what we'd like to accomplish, and you come up with that plan in the November time horizon, it can inform that next fiscal year's budget. One of the principals came to me and said, "Hey, I have this great idea that I've been mulling over with the school council, and we'll present it and bring it to the school committee for implementation next year. It's only going to cost $50,000." I was like, but the $50,000 isn't in next year's budget, so we can, what can we do to take a step that direction and make sure that as we're developing the following year's budget, that we can make that a fiscal reality moving forward. But and that's I think some of how the school improvement plan ideally is informing the budget, and I agree with Karen that the school improvement plan is also supporting the district's strategic plan and moving things forward.
Ms. Richardson, I'm sorry, I skipped over you. My intention is to try to have everyone be able to speak once or ask their questions once, and that's why I skipped over you before. I don't know if you still have your train. Any other questions or conversation about school councils? Okay, thank you. Next up is the Harwich Elementary School Improvement Plan.
While we get our presentation ready to go, I'd like to ask just to make sure that you all received it and that you were able to open it up and that the links were live and that it's as live a document as we're going to be presenting today. That's an assumption on my part, and I'm hoping that everybody was able to look at it. That being said, and while we keep doing this, if the school committee would like to adhere to the public comment section where 5 minutes are only limited to the speaker, I can indulge you for 5 minutes and then let you say that you've read it and we can move on. But for the sake of the public, I would love to have a few more minutes than that, and Mary and I will present not only the highlights of this year's achievements, but also the direction that we plan to go for next year. Awesome. Well, I'm Sam Hine, principal of Harwich Elementary School, and
Hi, I'm Mary Oldak, the assistant principal of Harwich Elementary.
before we get started, I want to take this opportunity to just publicly acknowledge and thank Mary for joining our team. A couple of years ago, I made a recommendation to the superintendent. I thought we found a real nice colleague to join and to move our school forward. And the evolution in the last 2 years is evident today because we will be presenting not only the achievements of this past year, but the direction that the school is going to be going together. So first of all, we want to recognize and celebrate 102 years that as of this June 30th will no longer be with us, but we thank a number of our retirees, Sue Langway, Jeannie McHugh, Patty Malinowski, and Francie Joseph, for their service to our community, to the students in particular, and to the staff. Also acknowledge that we've got a couple of new hires that in the next couple of weeks and in a month, through the AHS happenings that you'll hear a lot about this week or today, we'll be introducing some new teachers. Amanda Malone to third grade, Nicole Camp, our school psychologist that will be sharing with Chatham, Beth Connors, who will be our new ELL teacher, and that's it, right, for now. We may have a few changes over the summer, and hopefully not too many. An overview of the improvement plan and process. Superintendent gave the background information on that, and thank you for that. That kind of took a little bit of my conversation off the table, so I'll shorten my speech up. But in general, when you go from one year to the next, I want to point out that our school improvement plan currently is the 2016-18. It's been a 2-year plan, and we are transitioning to a 1-year plan. You will see us identify a number of the objectives that have been met, and that some are still ongoing. And with the data that we collected and the analysis that we had this year, we may have brought in, and you'll see some new focus areas that come together to create an improvement plan. So first, we're going to review the 2016-17 year and celebrate all the achievements and also recognize the areas that we need to continue working on. There were 4 focus areas: instruction, communication, curriculum, and wellness. There's a link there, by the way, and on the website, we got it loaded up, the school improvement plan. It was interesting, one of those first glitches about the soft rollout is it had been on the front page, it had been on our district pages, and when the new phase came out, it disappeared. But it's now back on, and it links right back to the 4 schools are there. And find out that you need to download it if you want to read it more clearly, but depending also on what computer you have or what programs you have on there, it might open up that or not. So there's going to be a live link, and we'll be checking it regularly to make sure it's up to date and active for everybody. All right. So first of all, I want to thank the committee members that were on our school council. Meredith Langelier, who has been a parent and been on it for 3 years, and her term officially ended because up until this point we had 3-year terms. We had determined that that was the direction we were going. We wanted some consistency, and we also valued the input that people had, and we rotated one parent every year. Sarah Eidman was the teacher representative, and her term ended this June. Jean Copeland joined us last year, and we'll have another year on her term at this point. Adam Capon is another new member, and his term at this rate is 2019. They've asked to stay on and continue, and as we move forward, and you'll see in the new improvement plan some of the changes that we're recommending, they hope to continue being part of that. And Katie Carey is our teacher representative at this time. The first focus area was instruction, and there were a number of objectives. And the next couple of slides are going to highlight some of these objectives, and you can see some of them are ongoing, and some of them we've checked off, so when you see that check, we've found it, and it'll inform our decision in the next one. So one of the objectives was collaborative learning, 21st century skills, critical thinking, and if you look, or you believe in the old adage, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I can be long in the tooth, as they say. Pictures worth 1,000 words. You've got collaborative learning, critical thinking, and you've got 21st century skills happening throughout the year, and we're very excited about some of the movements we've gone there.
Okay, this next slide under instruction is in regard to how our professional learning communities are supporting student learning. And our instructional leaders that we have for each grade level at Harwich Elementary are really the drivers behind that process. We have trained them in how to run a data protocol, and you can see pictures here of, actually on the left there is Chatham and Harwich collaborating around DRE scores. And then the other pictures are third grade PLC looking at student results on our new MAP assessment. And we also have data goals embedded in our professional practice and student learning goals. And that performance task student data example there is from a first grade team around math achievement. Hey, our instructional leader team, we have Jen McGillen for the preschool. She is also represents Chatham as the instructional leader as well. Melissa Brady for kindergarten, Amy Hirschberger for first grade, Leslie Simmons, who has been with us for 2 years, she's stepping aside, and this is just a real evidence of our capacity of our incredibly talented team at Harwich Elementary. You have Kristen Vistalskis sliding right in to take over that spot next year for second grade. Kim Picnic continuing for third grade. It'll be her third year as the instructional leader. Mary Crowley, Chris Roberts, who's been the Unified Arts instructional leader this year and has made great strides with that team in integrating our curriculum with the grade level teams. Marion Bragdon has been our special education instructional leader, and Aaron Sr. will be stepping into that role next year for us. And Joe Zabelski is our technology instructional leader. Jim gave a presentation not so long ago on the role of the technology instructional leader, and Joe has that position in our school.
And I have to add a quick shout out. One of the nice things about adding that position and formalizing it with a stipended role is it has done what we had hoped it would do, and develop internal capacity for leadership and opportunities for teachers to really step up and model, which takes teachers from that proficiency to the exemplary level of being a proficient or an excellent teacher. And these teachers have all stepped up and done just that, and it's nice to see a few more trying to step in now.
This slide is an example of how we're using data to monitor student progress at Benchmark, which is what we're using for grade level proficiency across the grade levels. The green columns are fall to winter. We administer MAP 3 times a year, once in the fall and October-ish timeframe, some in September, October, and again in January, and we just finished up administering it just a few days before school concluded this year for the spring. So you can see the movement and the percentage of students reading and in math at Benchmark at grade level, and the shift from the fall and winter Benchmark into the spring. So we're hovering right around the 80% efficiency mark, which I'll talk to a little bit more later on. And you can also see the areas of where we're really going to be focusing our efforts in our new student improvement, school improvement plan in KN1 particularly.
And you'll see as the transition to the one-year plan, those new focus areas are driven by the data that we've collected and we've analyzed this year. One of the other areas, action blocks underneath instruction, was developing a mission schedule that would support the instruction at all tiers. And I'm a visual learner, and this, if for those of you that are with me, see the yellow and the green, they kind of alternate, yellow being ELA, green being math. So it provided an option for our interventionists to be at each of the grade levels at different times throughout the course of the day, spread their wealth, so to speak, and it flip-flopped with the LA, and you could also see that there were large blocks of uninterrupted time for those content areas to be taught and delivered. And the blue sections highlight the times where the teachers have a planning period. In some cases, there'll be one that they'll use every day for themselves, or potentially have the opportunity to meet with their colleagues, which many of them do. But there's one identified every week where they meet together, and that's a cooperative learning time. And that's where those instructional leaders would set the agenda, develop the minutes, and give us feedback as to how we were addressing the student outcomes or analyzing the data from the previous, for example, MAP assessment. The beautiful thing about that schedule is we flushed it by the instructional leaders a couple months ago, asked them to give us some feedback, is there a need to make any changes? Everybody was very happy with what we had. One of the challenges was the Monday group felt that a couple Mondays were shortchanged, and the Wednesday group felt that the early release Wednesdays made it very challenging to have the double prep at that time and then PLCs, so both teams decided to swap for next year. And everybody else is going to have a pretty much consistent schedule, which is nice to start the year.
Under the focus area of instruction, we wanted to highlight our response to intervention, or our student support team process at Harwich Elementary. When you hear RTI, response to intervention, you often hear educators talk about Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 1 is where you're talking about behavior or academics, social emotional learning. Tier 1 is the core instruction, which really meets the needs of about 80% of our student body. Tier 2 is the continuation of Tier 1, maybe small group, core instruction, maybe some interventionist time. That's typically around 15% of our student population. And then Tier 3 is typically about 5% of our student population. Okay, so you'll hear Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 throughout this presentation. Okay. We wanted to give you a feeling for how our intervention staff works in the response to intervention. These are students who need a little bit more support than might be found within the classroom. Tier 2 students, maybe Tier 3, not special education students. These are students who just need an extra boost, an extra dose of reading or math support. We have 3 cycles that this past year. We had what we are now calling the bridge cycle, when school starts until our first administration of MAP. Cycle 1, which kicked in once we had the MAP results back and could digest those, keeping in mind that it was all new to us this year, and we had to have PD around that. We're hoping to accelerate that first cycle to begin more in the October timeframe next year. And cycle 2, which went from February vacation until the end of the school year. What I really wanted to highlight on this slide for you is, if you look across the bottom at the total number of students serviced, we have 3.6 interventionists, 2 reading teachers, and 1.6 math interventionists, to 1 full-time equivalent, 1.6 assistant. And you can see the bump up from the bridge cycle into cycle 1, where we went from 49 students total to, if I'm adding right here, 78 total. And we really attributed that to having the assessment data and having the tool, having MAP, to really help us identify those students who needed support. And the way we absorbed that and made that work was around managing group size and push-in versus pull-out services to accommodate the students who needed that. We also wanted to highlight here, if you look from the bridge cycle into cycle 1, along that same idea of, now we have this student data that we didn't have before. We identified 3rd and 4th graders who needed a tremendous amount of the interventionist time in cycle 1, where we had students who in 3rd and 4th grade who weren't reading at grade level and weren't performing in math at the level they should be. So that first cycle, we really had to shift our intervention resources into 3rd and 4th grade. And by cycle 2, you can see how the numbers fell off in 3rd and 4th grade, and we were able to really focus our efforts in kindergarten and 1st grade. And that's a theme that you'll see throughout our school improvement plan that we're looking at for next year, is really focusing our intervention efforts at that K1 and 2 level. The other theme I wanted to express here is just the fluidity of this process, the number of children entering, exiting, and how we're able to meet the needs of quite a number of students by having these cycles and being able to give them that second dose for a certain period of time. If they still need it, they continue. If they've become more secure, we exit them.
next area of focus was communication, and the next couple of slides will kind of highlight those, and I take extra pride in this because this is one of my personal goals relative to sharing the news, sharing the wealth. We've got a lot of great things that happen on a daily basis in our school, and there's a community out there that either assumes it's happening, doesn't know, and we want them to have as much access as possible to what's happening on a regular basis. So the next couple of slides will highlight that. We are reaching far around the world. As Robin had shared with you, a year ago, about this time, I was digitally ignorant relative to how to use the social media, and I will admit to that. We had a little PLC with our own administrators. Mr. Berg had experimented with that. We were very curious. He shared about an hour and a half of training, and then we took it from there. And it's really wonderful on a weekly basis to see that there's, on the average, 750 views of that week's activities in school. When you do the math, after 41 editions, you've got over 31,000 people or individuals have viewed the happenings at school on a weekly basis or throughout the year. As far as India, South Africa, a number of people in Europe, and I don't know who they are or how they are, but they regularly check our HAS happenings. I'm sure they're related somehow. This past week, I was very surprised, but just north of Mongolia, there's a town in Russia that someone read our HAS happenings. There was an island in the Pacific. Somebody looked in and logged in, and that's been twice that that's happened. So it's really interesting, and I'm very excited about this summer trying to dig a little deeper, not only to see, as you see on the far right, how many of those are direct emails that people look at opening, how many are using the website, because that's another venue and it's automatically posted, how many are using my Twitter handle and following me on Twitter now. Not that many, but it's alive. And on Facebook, thanks to the PTO, because they help promote that venue. And one of the neat things I have a chance to see, just like Robin and Bill, we can see of the email contacts, there's certain families that check it 3 or 4 times in the course of the weekend. The snow day we had over 1,600 views, which tells you that people were really interested in what was happening in school, even though there was no school, but they wanted to read something, and that was great. But I'd love to be able to analyze that and tease out the families that are where English is a second language. Just like our new website, we have a translation mode. I haven't figured out how to do that on this, but I'm hoping that if we see families that are not reading it, and maybe the language is a barrier, then we had to find a different form to communicate with them. So that's just a real exciting aspect of this year, or every week this year. And the second aspect that's evolved this year in partnership in some cases with Chatham, alternating sites, sharing the same theme, and also looking to inform parents of things that are happening or that might be interested, are parent universities. And we already have a couple lined up, and right now the challenge is how often are we going to do it. We're tempted, we've tried babysitting, we've tried a certain hour in the evening, try to entice parents with, you get a sticker if you show up, a parent university sticker, and your child gets 5 water bottles in their official when they come the next day. That's actually motivated a couple children to ask their parents or grandparents to show up for them. We're looking at possibly doing it at different times, maybe even during the day. But there is one that we are excited to share, and that's the PBIS Parent University, so that we can expand the initiative to the families in the community at large. And then the third area, our objective underneath an action plan underneath communication, was relative to the volunteers and outreaching to our community agencies to get them engaged. We have, I think it's one of the strengths of this community, that when you ask for help, they come to help. The budget is a perfect example of being supported in an indirect way or direct way in some cases. We have the elder services where there's over 12, on the average 14 retirees that come and work with children either in reading or math. We've got the civic agencies that are partnering with us as much as we have, and as far as we're concerned, it's an untapped potential, and you'll see that reflected in the next year's goal. You heard a little bit about a VIPS coordinator in the past budget presentations, and you'll see that theme continue.
Mr. Russell?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mary or Sam, I must be tier 3. The question I have is, you alluded to interventionists.
Yep.
talk me through that a bit as to, are these extra staff per grade that once a youngster gets to level 2 or 3, based on, let's just say, map on these two scores, they're either they're intervening in the classroom? Are these non-special ed IEP youngsters?
Yes. So these,
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
Just give us a
Sure.
description of that.
So we
And
have-
also, does Chatham Elementary have the same opportunity?
Yep, we have 2 reading specialists who are very, very skilled and knowledgeable and have just been an incredible asset to our school. We just were able to bring in when Jenny McHugh retired, we were able to bring in Maureen Kelleher from DY mid-year, and she's a very veteran teacher. And we have Norma Crappy is one of our reading teachers as well. They make a very effective team for reading. And then we have Gina Grenier, who's our math teacher, and Colleen Kipperman, who's our .6 assistant, who works with math intervention only. So when the students are identified for intervention, the parents, if they haven't already been in the intervention program, the parents are sent a letter about the opportunity their child has, just so that they know some of these services, depending on the format and what needs to be delivered, or small group pullout. So we want parents to know if their students leaving the classroom, of course, and depending on what's needed, sometimes the interventionist actually goes into the classroom, and we reassess their progress. And right now we're using our MAP cycles as that cycle, and the students are entered or exited based upon their progress and progress monitoring that the interventionists are doing with them during that cycle as well.
Back in the day, would they be our Title I teachers?
Yes.
I am now at level 2, thank you.
Yes.
And I'm plugged in now.
The reason why that's different now is
Congratulations.
just this past year, we qualified with, as a school-wide plan with Title I. We're no longer a targeted assistance plan, so we don't call them Title I teachers. We don't anymore. They're interventionists.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Being a school-wide plan gives us far more flexibility with how the teachers service students and which students we can be availed of their services.
Excellent,
really.
thanks.
Yeah.
So the third area of focus area this year was a curriculum area, and I'm going to turn this section over to Mayor.
All right, so under the curriculum focus of multicultural awareness and curricular cultural connections, we wanted to highlight, and we'll talk a little bit about this next, the positive behavior intervention and support. That's why you see the shark speaking Spanish and being respectful, responsible, safe, and ready to learn. That's the connection with our Spanish class. The name jar, we chose to highlight that book as just an example of the multicultural literature that's being embedded in our close reading units. We have our visiting artist, Rob Surrett, who was just with us, 2 weeks ago, who is just amazing. He painted that, I think, in about 5 minutes. And as he's painting, he's delivering messages about perseverance and messages around what those Abraham Lincoln was known for and what he stood for our country, and the cultural connections that are just naturally embedded in our curriculum, band, chorus, and some of those are during the school day, some are after the school day. We also have a tremendous opportunity to reach and expand our enrichment programs and our cultural programming with the change in the start times and end times of the school day. We did a survey, and there's a tremendous interest by families in having enrichment programs from 2:15 to 3:15, and so we've been working with community agencies on that as well.
And for the community, while we're doing this, a public service announcement that periodically, every 2 weeks in the summer, there's going to be another HS happenings, and I'm hoping to update the options that are going to be available to parents, and by August 1st, we hope to have a menu of all the programs that are going to be offered before, during, and after school.
This slide really is highlighting the local connection to our STEM curriculum, and learning opportunities for our students. Our third grade students have just recently established a wonderful partnership with the Pleasant Bay Sailing Club. And we have a very strong Audubon program within the school. They deliver over 300 programs to each and every classroom in our building, and a field trip. Red River Beach, we have the Truro National Seashore Trip, and the Coastal Explorer, which is actually an extension of UMass. And we have our living artifacts there in the box as well. And it's really neat to think of how our kids are growing up on Cape Cod and how their classroom is right here in our natural resources.
The fourth and final area that we had focused on this year was wellness, and the areas that the next couple slides will highlight are examples of things that we were able to accomplish and things that we still feel need to be done. The maintenance of the physical plan is something that's an annual goal and objective. Last summer, we were able to highlight some of the many facelifts, if you want to call it, from the front of the building to the grounds being maintained on a regular basis. Some of those are now embedded and regular, and it's been just long overdue in some cases. And this summer, you'll hear more. Our painters just finished painting our cafeteria. Monday, the electricians are going to be redoing the lighting system, and by Wednesday, we are anticipating the floor to resurfacing to happen, and you will see it evolve in the next edition of our HS happenings, and it'll be wonderful because it's just going to be a great way to start the new year. We had some, one of the major aspects of our physical plan is also the playground. The kids use it every day. Just as Chatham has got a big capital campaign going on to rebuild the areas in the playground area, we are able to buy a little bit of time because when we had done our safety inspection of the playgrounds, it was over 80% in great shape. We had done a great job over the last 25 years of maintaining the Castle of the Clouds playground. But it is a 25-plus-year-old structure. That was a huge community build before my time. And the Make Way for Kids playground, our preschool playground, also has been there and has not had a great deal of attention. We've maintained it, but through the generosity of a number of local businesses, and this is where I have to give a shout out to Francie Joseph for one of her last acts as our liaison. She was able to bring in Polus Salvi de Silva, I hope I said that right, GFM Enterprises, Shepley Wood Products, and Dig It Construction. And where I thought this project was not going to happen, we were trying to resurface the playground. We also know that we need to upgrade it, and instead of investing a whole lot of money and having to dig it all up, we want to have a nice plan, and that will be reflected in next year's improvement plan. They offered to come in, they boxed it all in, they dug out the old sand, they replaced it, and all at no cost to us. So I want to thank them very much for their contributions. As you can see on this picture there, Rise Enterprise, they're putting in, I believe, $100,000 worth of lighting upgrades in our building, and by September we will be much more energy efficient, brighter, and cleaner. And so the combination of our budget, our ground supervisor, some grants, and also our local agencies, we will continue to upgrade the building and decide to maintain it because it's a huge investment for our community. And this part I will give credit to Mary.
Okay. This is our initiative around positive behavior intervention and supports. The acronym is PBIS. It is a program that is supported by the U.S. Department of Education, and we've been working with the May Institute, who has the regional recognition for being the group that school districts can turn to for implementation. The PBIS team, we have a representative from every grade level, also our ELL learners, and our school psychologists, guidance, special education, and unified arts. And you see the kids there with their shark fins on their head and saying, fantastic, kids are respectful, responsible, safe, and ready to learn. And those are the 4 areas that we focus on at Harwich Elementary. PBIS is really a system of support around reinforcing positive behavior. Research shows that we can impact a child's behavior or anyone's behavior with positive reinforcement, not negative reinforcement. This has really had a huge impact on our school culture. That Fantastic is the center of who we are at Harwich Elementary. We have a very talented first grade teacher, Rebecca Riley. Jim, I just need to click on the Fantastic sticker there. Do I? I think that's a link to a video. Yeah, it's the images on it.
I have to give a shout out to the team because this has really been driven by the teachers. They started last summer working on and developing all the expectations and the reward systems. We rebooted, they met regularly throughout the year, and it's fantastic, and that's a pun that's intended.
So our first grade teacher, Rebecca Riley, wrote our school song, which is played every day at announcements, and we sing it at every assembly. It's a catchy tune. You're guaranteed to be tapping your toes and singing it at 3 a.m. maybe. It just is a very catchy tune. Anyway, this is Rebecca's class when she wrote this song. These students are now going into 3rd grade.
That's the first cut.
Yeah, no sound. Sorry.
We might just need you guys to sing it.
Yeah, I can do that. Let's go from the beginning, and I'll be happy to sing it. I love the head bobbing. Yep. Ready to learn at school.
So sorry.
That's okay. All right.
If you go to the first edition in September, you saw the whole school learning it in this first school-wide assembly. It was a very rough cut, and then they've heard it they got recorded by Chris Roberts with a number of 4th graders, and then we've played it every day. And at the last assembly, it was absolutely beautiful, and I'm hoping I can load that up on the next edition. So it's just a nice way to kind of close out the year.
I'm sorry, that didn't work. It's adorable. I will sing it for you after the meeting if you'd like, and teach you the hand motions. Anyway, so this is really a cycle of how it's implemented. The first slide where it says on the bus we are respectful, responsible, safe, and ready to learn. We start with explicitly teaching the children how to be fantastic in every location in the building, from hallways to the bus to the cafeteria, the playground. And usually this is a 3 to 5 year implementation. We were able to start off right away in year 1 with a full implementation. We really have to give credit to our community for helping us have the resources we need to do this. Not only the professional development and the release time for the PBIS team, but just even the materials, the number of posters, fish bowls, pom-poms, which are really water drops, plastic sharks, stuffed sharks, everything we needed to get this off the ground and make it kid-friendly. We then notice and reinforce the children's behavior either with a water drop, which goes into their fish bowl, which is really a pom-pom, or a sticker. And you see the 2 little girls at the bottom there with the chart they have. Their classes fill their fish bowl 5 times. Once their class fills their fish bowl 5 times, eventually the grade level shark, the big stuffed shark, goes in the shark tank in our lobby, and that leads to a school-wide reward. So everything's connected from the individual level to the class level to the school-wide reward system. So in total, we had 6 school-wide rewards this year, which totaled up to 108,000 acts of fantastic behavior. And if we figure that out with the number of students we have, that's actually 1 fantastic act every day for every student. And that slide up there is hard to see what that is, but we had Rob Kem, who is an international champion BMX rider, and he delivers a message. All our school-wide rewards delivered messages related to being fantastic. And what you see lying there on the floor are 3rd grade teachers who had K-Rob had earned their trust that they could lay down there and he could jump over them successfully. And of course, the kids just thought that that was hilarious, and they loved that. Okay, and with this data, I just want to give you a flavor for how we can look at our discipline referrals and locate hotspots, we call them, within the building. We very early on in the school year identified buses as a big area for improvement for being fantastic. And at the beginning, like November-ish, our bus referrals accounted for almost half of our discipline referrals in the school. So we created this concept called bus school. And the students were brought onto the bus right after morning announcements, and we explicitly taught them exactly how to behave on the bus and how to be fantastic on the bus. Took them on a little ride around by the old middle school, came back, and that little girl's getting off the bus with her fantastic sticker for bus school. We've been asked by the May Institute to present at their conference in the fall about our bus school and how successful it had been. You can see in the blue chart there how our bus referrals fell off from the fall into the spring. And bus school led to playground school, cafeteria school, and that were for, really supported kids who might have needed some more support in those particular areas.
And when we had some skeptical drivers at the beginning of the year, not sure that this would work, and then turning around and saying, we need more stickers because my bus rides are getting a lot better, and it's only because I've been acknowledging the kids that have been doing the right thing. One driver asked for another bus school about a month ago, 3.5 weeks ago, and it was getting to the end of the year. And I said, we had a bus school. The boys and girls, we had explicit lessons. We learned it. I wasn't sure if the driver needed bus school or if it was the kids. So I got on the bus that afternoon and I said, boys and girls, I didn't go to the bus school with you and Miss Aldak, so could you guys show me what the bus school is all about as we go home? And of course, it was a wonderful ride, not a problem. They were absolutely civil, polite. They got off great. The next day, they got off the bus. They all earned a walk sticker from their driver for being excellent students and teaching Mr. Heim bus school. And they had an announcement that this bus number all gets a walk drop because of their fantastic behavior. We haven't had a bus report for the rest 3 weeks of the school year. If that data can be supported year after year, this is working.
If you think back to the response to intervention triangle, where 80% of the students are being supported with Tier 1, this is just our discipline data. We have 89% of our student body have had no discipline referrals or only one discipline referral. This past school year, about 8% of our students have received 2 to 5 discipline referrals, and 6 or more of our students, or about 19 students, have 19 students have received 6 or more office discipline referrals, and the students in those two tier 2 and tier 3 are the focus of the next steps for PBIS at Harwich. And this slide is just a reinforcement of that we have 83% implementation success at Tier 1, and we're moving into Tier 2 next year.
And so that was the overview for 2016-17 school year. As you noticed, there were a number of things that we felt we strongly met, and others are ongoing. And we tried to highlight a couple of the areas that are going to reflect in the 2017-18 improvement plan, which we call our new improvement focus areas. So the 2017-18 is on the website, and with the exception of 1 or 2 slides that we switched around, anybody that logs on should be able to see the presentation as well as this, each of the slides individually. Okay, so we had 4 focus areas. The first is going to be, and this was the order of importance and the order of attention from our perspective. One was school improvement. The second focus area is going to be on the improving the family and community engagement aspect. The third is going to be supporting all our students as learners. And the fourth and final one will be making sure that we continue to have a high-quality core curriculum and instruction. The first focus area is school improvement. Strengthen the Harwich Elementary School Council to provide improved member involvement and shared decision-making, which is very timely with regards to the conversation I just heard a few minutes ago. The objective is to develop more involved Harwich Elementary School Council membership reflects the constituency and the culture of the Harvest Elementary School, which will develop the school improvement plan. And we have the largest elementary school in Cape Cod with 600 students and over 100 staff. And that's a constituency that needs to be represented every year. So we will be recruiting. We have begun that process. I'll share a little bit more about that. Staff, family, and community representatives to be a part of that process. We will develop a vision statement for the HES with the school council. We will implement the 17-18 school improvement plan next year. We will also, relative to timelines that you are considering, create an 18-19 school improvement plan to inform the FY19 budget, which will mean we'll be presenting to you probably in December or January at the very latest, so it has some opportunity to be reflected, if necessary, in the 19 budget. And we will begin and take the lead in conversations on future then Monomoy Regional School District elementary configuration, following up on the conversations we had with the restructuring of kindergarten, for example, in the spring. To make sure that this process had some ground and some support, we reached out and opened up basically an open forum last Thursday to anybody who was interested in hearing the plan and might be interested in being part of this process. To Mr. Duvall's point, I personally went out to every classroom, every teacher group, every grade level, and I personally told them, I said, we have a large school. Over the years, it's been represented by a number of you that have represented grade spans. I would encourage you, I would invite you, I'd welcome you to be part of this process, and if there would be so much as a grade level representative at each, that would be awesome. The challenge with that is you have to match that with a parent and community members plus one. And so we opened it up to the PTO, asked them, they put it on Facebook, they put it on their Twitter, they reached out, called a few people, and this is the representative group that showed up this Thursday on their own. And as you can see, each grade level was represented, a preschool director was represented, a number of parents, some school choice, some grandparents, some local, and a retiree, and a current school community member whose term is technically up. The other two, unfortunately, because of the time frame, and they weren't able to get there, but they had vetted the plan on Monday at the school council meeting, and also had it sent to them electronically and had a chance to give me some feedback before we presented to the school committee. So I have to thank this group right here, because one of the things I asked them, I said, now that you heard the plan, any feedback, can we have to make this different, or the focus areas a little bit in the wrong direction? Can you give us? They were all very supportive of it. I said, now that I've got your support on that, could I ask you to be part of this process next year and possibly be placed on the ballot in September for your peers to support or nominate you? If I didn't get, or we didn't get a commitment from each one of these, we got one from their colleagues. So a fourth grade teacher said, I can't make it next year, but my colleague will stand in for me. A first grade teacher did the same thing. So I've got at least a verbal commitment from every grade level in our building, and the parents, and we'll be looking for a couple more. And the school committee members, as I told you, are hoping to continue on. And we hope to, I'm confident that on by the second week of September, after we've had our curriculum nights, that we will have had a ballot that will represent the community at large, the representatives in the school, and we will have our first meeting, and the task will be to not only maintain the 17-18 plan, but to make sure we are on track to present to you in mid-year a plan that could potentially impact the 19 budget. So
I just have a little suggestion in light of the comments that were made earlier, that just, the objective on that be just tweak to have it have a
Which objective?
What?
Which? The goal, or?
The goal. Meet 8 times a year or something like that. It's a more definite rather than more involved.
That's duly noted, and actually that's been considered and put out there, and recognizing that if the group grows to that level, there's going to be some challenges from somebody at some point. The current plan that's in the handbook that is ready and willing to be adopted is, we had a meeting on the third Monday of every month after school. We recognize that after school may be good and conducive for teachers, and it has been, and the parents that have been on the committee every year. Is this a good time? Should we repost them at a different time? We will revisit that in September with the new group and make sure that we have something consistent.
February and April will be hard for that to happen. Because isn't
The
the,
third Monday is vacation, well, not necessarily.
no,
You're absolutely
Most
right.
likely, yes.
And that was discussed and it was put out, so except on February, we had it on the second month. But yes. So, next slide. Okay, so the focus area, improve family community engagement, which is our next area. The objective is to strengthen collaboration of the family and community partners through the opportunities for engagement and communication tools. So we're building on what we already have, the strength we have, enhancing the family and community volunteer opportunities. Again, as I said, it's an untapped potential, and we have much work to do. But I will point out, a number of years ago, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but we had a part-time volunteer coordinator in Harwich, and I remember that year being able to report out that we had 990 hours logged of volunteers. And it was across every grade level. It was wonderful to be able to reach out to that person and say, second grade is doing this, they need 5 volunteers, and the phone bank was active, and next thing you know, people are showing up. So there is great potential in that, and the school council recommends and recognizes that we need to continue developing that, fostering that. Developing an academic mentor program, a safety net for children, all children, not just the ones that are identified that need support, but any child that might be on the cusp. And just a mentor program is somewhat in line with phase 2 of PBIS, where we are going to be piloting it, what's called a check-in, check-out. A student comes in, and he might be the custodian that is that person's mentor. They will check in the morning, check in in the afternoon before they leave. They'll have a positive contact with someone before and after. Likewise, if someone's needing a little bit of extra math, we need to develop a library or a list of parents that are willing, grandparents, guardians, that are willing to give some of their time with the student, either in school, before school, after school, and a combination of all the above. So the connections with, we had a nice little pilot intergenerational program with our 4th grade classes, where they came in and shared a couple of qualities of good citizenship and share their experience, and the connections there were so great that a couple have asked if they could come on the last day and have lunch with their 4th grade friends. And that's wonderful. That's the kind of mentoring that we want to continue to build on. Developing a handbook. We'll be working this summer with Robin and tightening up the language in our handbooks to make sure that there's consistency in the expectations. And we've had some changes, such as the vote they did the last meeting for the lunches. That needs to reflect in that, so it's ready for parents before September. Focusing communication on how families can best support it. An idea of having a parent university. How can you support your child? Feel we do a good job with incoming kindergarten families when we meet with them individually and talk to them about the roles that they have and how they can support. But we don't have such an opportunity with 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade parents, and the needs change. So that might be a focus area. We'll see if we can entice enough families, even if it's a couple, 4 or 5 for a coffee hour some morning, it'll be worth it. Promote Family Resource Center. Harwich Elementary was a 21st century school. It was recognized. A huge grant was given to the town to provide a 21st century building. So we had a resource center that Francie Joseph really kind of managed for us. WIC services were provided right in the school. When you say you meet the needs of families, a person from womb to tomb, as they say. You have the WIC program, you have the outreach to the preschool, so the coordination with the community family service agencies. We have wonderful programming during, before, and after school, and then adult education or adult civic program. So we want to make sure we continue that legacy. Enhancing the curriculum, extracurricular enrichment opportunities. This 215 dismissal next year, in as much as I've heard, and we all are concerned about the challenges that possesses and the benefits that we see from being teachers and having children that are bright and alert and ready to learn and stretch their brains, we will have and already have a dozen staff members that are now willing to offer things from Minecraft to a Dr. Seuss play to you'll see in August the list of things that will be offered, and our hope is that we have something offered every day for parents to access. Some will be free because we have built-in stipends to support the staff. Some will be at cost as they are right now, fee-based, and others may be a small charge. A Minecraft club, you might pay $5 and get a Minecraft license that you can take home for the whole year. You join for the club, and that's the cost. So very excited about that. Establishing Castle of the Class Playground Revitalization Committee, that's the next step, with long-range planning for that. And strengthen the collaboration between the Harwich Rec, Chatham Rec, to expand the youth sports program. There's conversations that have been had. We've already had 3 meetings. We have one scheduled for the 3rd week in July to make sure that we roll everything out together. Not only providing opportunities for kids on one brochure at the rec department, at the old middle school, right across the street with Harwich Junior Theater, or through the school directly through MCLP, but expanding the youth programs. We have children that are traveling out of town to be part of sports, and if we can pool our resources, not only will that keep them in town and keep them building the school community as a whole, but it will, towns that have done strong combined rec programs have a nice feeder program for the high school, so that's always a extra bonus. And then objective number 3.
Our third focus area is supporting all students as learners. And we're looking at the Massachusetts Tiered System of Support Blueprint to ensure that every student receives academic and non-academic supports that they need to maximize their learning. Our objective here is to develop our pre-K-2 early intervention capacity. As I highlighted on some of the previous data slides, the pre-K-2 is really where our focus needs to be, and our research shows that if children don't receive the intervention and supports they need at that young age, it's very difficult for them to catch up. There's a phenomenon called the Matthew effects, where if a student doesn't learn how to read when they should, that by the time they have to read to learn, they fall further behind. That impacts their engagement and their motivation, and it becomes kind of the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and that's what we're really trying to stem off with this model. We have a task force this summer on the Reading Foundational Skills program, and hope to be piloting a program next school year. We just had our first meeting yesterday. Is that yesterday? Yeah. And so we're just really looking to maximize the number of students that we can support K-2. And if we have our high quality core curriculum at the foundation of that, we'll really be humming with how we're supporting children. We're also looking to study and explore the universal preschool model within Monomoy. And our summer tutoring program, we currently have about 30 students enrolled in our summer tutoring program. Again, these are non-special ed students that just need that extra boost over the summer. And to do this, we're going to be implementing 2 of our big initiatives this year that Melissa McGuire has headed up, is our district accommodation plan and our social emotional learning curriculum that you've recently been, we've had some presentations on that here. We also have the Gosnell and counseling resources that are embedded in our schools, and we're looking to really promote access and family knowledge about that availability. We have a team that's really focused on achieving the designation of it being a trauma-sensitive school. That is a collaboration of the Massachusetts Advocates for Children, Harvard School of Law, and Lesley University. It's a 4-course kind of certification program that a team has to go through. It's school-based, and we had about 10 educators from Harwich this year who went through the first course, Trauma 1. We had Trauma 1 on Thursday nights, and next year we're really excited. There's so much interest that we are running Trauma 1 again and Trauma 2 for the teachers who finished up Trauma 1 last year. So we hope to have that in place within 2 years. And we're just going to continue to build upon our fantastic PBIS program and some more supporting students who need more support around behavior. And finally, the last focus area is a high-quality core curriculum and instruction with all the efforts we've had with close reading, math and focus, our stream integration that we've had, and that's really the foundation of the learning and what the students need to have in place that will best support that K-2 model. Okay, so we're again continuing to develop develop our instructional leader capacity. I can't be more proud of the team we have in place and how far we've come with their capacity to lead data teams and lead their grade level teams and their common learning time as well. And again, the integration with STREAM and our unified arts and with the community partnerships. And questions?
Could have done it in 5 minutes if you'd wanted.
It was a long 5 minutes. Sorry. Ms. Ryder.
A couple things. Can you explain the trauma-sensitive school?
What is a trauma-sensitive school?
What is the whole training you're talking about?
Yep,
Not
so
nothing,
with the opioid crisis on Cape Cod, we have an increasing number of students entering our schools who have trauma histories. I was having a conversation the other day with Melissa Brady, one of our very veteran kindergarten teachers, and she said, you know, it used to be one student a year that might have experienced that type of trauma, but now it's 3 or 4. And those are just the students that we know of. We have students who are the victim of really horrific traumatic situations, and they have very distinct behavior needs and student support needs around sensory integration, how they react to transitions, how they react to stimuli, and being trauma sensitive means that we understand the impact trauma can have on how they perform academically too, because it impacts their processing, because they're hypervigilant of their surroundings, which makes it more difficult for them to attend to instruction. Quite often, the symptoms may very much look like ADHD or processing disorders.
Okay, thank you. The other question was, I was looking at the, way back near the beginning, the slide about the 2016-2017 school council. I was wondering who the co-chair was, and I was wondering who the community members were.
There was no community member this year. The co-chair was Meredith Lengeler.
Okay. And no community members? The at-large members, right? Okay. Thank you.
My efforts to solicit and to invite and to engage a community member fell short of that mark. But I'm very encouraged about the start last week because the efforts to reach out were doubled or tripled depending on how you look at it, and the results have started off on the right note.
Great, thank you. This was good. Good information on this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think anecdotal is the right term. You talked about a trauma-sensitive school, and I was just telling Mary just this morning, I said, in reflecting at the end of the school year, and I hope it can be backed by data. Usually the last week of school with the transition into summer, the office is supporting and managing a number of children. With 600 children that their history, their background are as they are. If we do a good job of nurturing, making connections with kids, we can support them and we can prepare them for the transition into the summer. Usually see those peaks right before vacation break. We had one student the day before yesterday who had a challenging day, and there was no office referrals on the last day of school. The children were all engaged, happy in their classrooms with step-up day, which can be a very traumatic experience because you're leaving something that you're very comfortable and friendly and happy with, and an unknown, and 20 other unknowns, and it's in a different place in the building. And I hope that all these efforts from the teacher training, from the PBIS initiatives, from our efforts to engage the students with from differentiating the lessons to engaging them in different ways, 21st century school, that all of those combined are providing that kind of result. Time will tell, but I'm definitely watching it because I was pinching myself. I was like, I cleared my calendar because we have to triage, and we did. We enjoyed the day. I wish I had enjoyed the day, but it could have been more enjoyable if I wasn't waiting for something to happen. So we had a great last day, great end of the year. Fantastic year.
Just out.
On that line, I'm very thrilled to hear that Mrs. McGuire and the schools are doing that trauma focus. I think that is cutting edge and very needed. The other thing that I'm very pleased about is the results that you've had for the discipline. For the bus is always a problem, but even in class, not having so many referrals, so those are great.
We're going to be rolling it out to the families and communities next fall.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Thank you. Very thorough presentation. Thank you. All right. Next up on our agenda is the second reading of the wellness policy, policy ADF. We had our first reading of sorts last meeting, and tonight we're looking to approve that policy. Any discussion? Ms. Stout?
I'd like to make a motion, and that is on page 7. There is one part under foods on the second bullet that says we will have no more than 35% calories from sugar. And then down further, three more lines down, it says we will strive to have no more than 25 grams of added sugar per item. I would like to move that we take out that we will strive to have no more than, and just leave it, we will have no more than 25 grams of added sugar. And I'm going to reference that healthy schools, students' healthy schools, is the standards for what we're doing. And they're saying in here, no more than 35% of total calories can come from sugar. And the only sugar exemption they give is, or to qualify for that, if you have low-fat or non-fat yogurt or drinkable yogurt, you can have no more than 30 grams of total sugar in an 18-ounce serving. So the American Heart Association states that kids are not supposed to have any more than 35 grams of sugar in a whole day. So that's my motion, to just take out those few words to make it not.
So your motion is to make that sentence or that line say, we will have no
Yes.
more than 25 grams.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so any abstentions, excuse me?
Abstain. I think they're putting a huge burden on the staff of the school without giving them time to prepare for it.
Okay, I would abstain as well. So we have Steve and myself abstaining, and everybody else saying yes.
And I have another motion,
Okay?
and that is on
motion, hold on one
page.
second.
Okay.
Well, obviously that motion carries because it's, okay.
That is on page 5, under meals served through the National School Breakfast and Lunch Programs will. A lot of this says what percentage, and I'd like another bullet that says we will have no more than 35% of total calories come from added sugar. That doesn't mean fruits or anything, just added sugars. And that's...
Can you say that bullet again that you would like to add? So you're adding a bullet under meals served through National
Right.
School Lunch, and that bullet will say, slowly so I can write it, please.
Have no more than 35% of total calories.
Wait, that's way too fast.
Okay.
Have no more than
35%
of total
of
calories.
total calories from added sugar. So that's in line with the other.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
And any further discussion? Mr. Duvall?
You're saying added sugar, not natural sugar.
Not if it comes in fruit or anything, no. It's just pouring the sugar in there.
Could I just ask for a clarification? I thought
Right.
we had that in, oh, sorry. I thought we had that in another section. Is that just an addition kind of to make it line up with the other section on it? I'm sorry, I don't have the copy in front of
The
me.
one that we just did was in food items sold individually.
Okay.
And this right here is our goals. Our goals, meals will be, and then affordable and dense and the goals. So that just goes in there.
Mr. Russell?
Just a clarification, I am so out of the loop, so that's why the question. Are these items that the Wellness Committee didn't get to in the subcommittee, or they did and it wasn't agreed, and therefore the board is reviewing it?
It wasn't brought up in the Wellness Advisory Committee, and it was brought up during our subcommittee meeting. The first one was agreed to, that there was an error on, and so just putting that in their goals is the only difference. I personally didn't think about it. I assume nobody else thought about it. We didn't discuss it. But it's part of the standards.
I have no background knowledge, so it's difficult, and I don't plan to abstain, but I find it hard at this stage to understand the background of the hours of discussion, so I have to just defer and say, hopefully fine, because I have a hard time on that one element of the sugar. How come it wasn't resolved during Wellness Committee meetings?
Is there Miss Melissa?
Good evening, Melissa McGuire. We did have a wellness committee that vetted the policy thoroughly, and we had nurse representation, nutritionist representation, a lot of actually community representation, folks from Gosnell, folks from Harwich Youth and Family. So we did vet the whole policy before it was presented as kind of a final draft to the sub-policy committee. So they did a lot of hard work. Garth was on that as well. So
Garth being the food service director.
Food service director, thank you very much. So I feel like there was a significant amount of time spent reviewing the standards and students. We had 3 students who were also on that committee. So I feel we spent a significant amount of time vetting a policy that was drafted through the sub-policy committee, went to the wellness committee, who further had revisions to it and suggestions to the policy, and then back to the sub-policy committee. So there was a lot of work that went into that. So it is tough to not have kind of the voices of some of the nurses and nutritionists and Garth in relationship to changing some of those percentages. As I've mentioned in the past, doing that, we don't know without Garth researching how much that will remove from the items that are on there that currently meet the standards. So if you decrease any of those numbers of the sugars or added sugars or grams or however you want to, frame it, we don't know what that will do to the food list. So it's hard to do it at this time and then go back and then have to implement something where purchases have already been, submitted, or procurement for the foods that we get under the standards. So I wouldn't have that answer. We'd have to really go and now research all the foods that might not meet the current criteria if it's changed.
Madam Chair, if I can, thank you, Melissa. In other words, the implementer of this slight change might be Garth, for example. He would have to, I don't want to bring pain, I know it's a sweet topic. I would like to find out from Garth if in fact Ms. Doubt's suggestion is able to be implemented, and I fall back to what Steve said, I'm just waking up on the thought that easy enough for us to vote A, yes.
But Garth,
But just let me finish, please.
Okay.
Garth?
If the food manager is able to say no problem, then I don't have a problem with it.
Might I make a recommendation to the committee? This policy has to be submitted to the state June 30th. What we had discussed is the opportunity always to revise a policy, but if there are items in the policy that we would like to investigate and research further, we have already the Wellness Committee meeting set for the entire year next year. that we could take a look at, certainly making revisions and proposals to the subcommittee. And I feel that would be a fairer opportunity for those who have more expertise in that area to look at that and be able to, provide the answers for it. So I guess that would be my it doesn't mean because it's submitted to the state on June 30th that we don't have opportunity to revise it and really take a deeper look at what are the foods exactly that are being served and meet those criteria. So if there's a way to, to approve it with, the caveat that it will be reviewed with the full wellness committee next year if there are other revisions to be proposed. We would then be meeting our obligation to the state for submission of the wellness policy, and we would continue to review it to ensure that it has the components that people feel strongly about.
Isn't part of the wellness committee's job to review the policy annually?
The wellness committee's job is actually to draft the policy and to submit it as to the school committee. That is part of their charge, and yes, to continue to review it and then develop goals and objectives around the policy to implement what we asked for in this policy.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stout?
I was at one of the two wellness committee meetings and then all the subcommittee meetings on this, and Garth has said that he doesn't have a problem with this. We addressed specifically the breakfast items, that Pop-Tarts were there and there's no nutrition and it's way over. Yeah, and the Rice Krispies treats really don't have nutrition, but they're like 12% sugar. So they would fit in under here. And so he does not have a problem with this. He's already told us that as far as he's concerned, we can even pick out the food.
He did absolutely say happy to get rid of food items. However, he didn't necessarily agree to this and change because he doesn't know about it. So I think he's absolutely 100%. If, we say there's no Pop-Tarts, no Rice Krispie treats, he was happy to remove those and look at other foods that, hopefully could replace that. But I don't think he is aware of the grams that we're now suggesting, no more than 25 grams and no more than the percentage of added sugars. That's an addition that hasn't been reviewed by the Wellness Committee. So I think that's the only request or suggestion I'm asking is that the Wellness Committee have an opportunity to really research and work on that to revise it, should we be able to meet those standards.
Well, I'm saying that not only did the American Heart Association say that that was the maximum per day for ages 2 through 18, but our standards from the Massachusetts school nutrition standards state this, so we don't want to have inferior standards here.
No, definitely not. We just want to make sure that what we're currently doing, we're able to move forward with and follow the policy. We have a policy in place. So I'm not by any means dismissing that would be good to have in the policy, but I'm feeling that the Wellness Committee, with their charge, should be part of having that conversation and making sure that how it gets implemented is in line with what we are asking of a policy.
We should vote.
Any further discussion? Okay, we do have a motion to amend as well as a second. Any interest in withdrawing said motion?
No.
Okay. So, yes, ma'am?
Could someone maybe read the motion exactly again? Sorry.
The motion is to add under the bullet, meals served through the National School Lunch and Breakfast programs will have no more than 35% of total calories from added sugar.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion?
My sense is that...
Mr. Russell.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm repeating, I'm not in a position to vote yes on this, and I feel that our food service manager has the opportunity to, I'd feel comfortable with the amendment that he has the opportunity to review this particular motion, and possibly even the one that I did vote for, so that he can signal back, and he's the one that's controlling this management, and he's able to do this. Rather than hear from 8 laymen and women on the board to all of a sudden make a motion after months of meeting with a committee. Similar fallback to the suggestion the superintendent should review the school improvement plans at schools before it gets to us. So that's my only point of discussion. I wouldn't want a ramification of him coming back and now saying that's going to be a very difficult thing. And maybe it's not. I have no idea.
Further discussion, Ms. Stout?
I guess I would say that in all of this literature that I've been reading, there are direct links to the health, well-being, and learning, excuse me, and learning of the children through positive nutrition. And I don't want to do any harm to our kids, and that's what it does.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All right, we vote on the amendment as I read. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed?
No.
No. So can we have a show of hands, please, for the ayes? We have Mr. Crafty, Ms. Ryder, and Ms. Stout. And the nays? Ms. Richardson, Mr. Russell, Mr. Duvall, and myself. And the motion does not pass?
Well,
It's tied, so it does not pass.
I have another motion,
Okay.
and
Ms.
that,
Stout.
and that is on page 3. Where it says the district wellness committee will update, modify the wellness policy,
Could you direct where on page 3, please?
the very first sentence.
Thank you.
I contacted Mask, and they said they could advise, and matter of fact, they're called the Wellness Advisory Committee, but they cannot update or modify. They can just advise us what they would update and modify.
So, I'm sorry, you lost me.
So where it says the district wellness committee will update or modify, it should say the district wellness committee will recommend updates and modifications.
I'm sorry, I don't see where you are. I see the district will retain records to document compliance with the
Okay.
requirements.
Possibly I have another copy than you do?
This is the one that was in our packets at the last meeting.
Okay. Okay. In there, does it say the district wellness committee will update or modify
What's the heading of it?
revisions and updating of policy?
Oh, that's on the top of page 4. on
Oh,
our
yes,
copy.
okay.
So the top of page 4, the district wellness committee will update.
So they can't update, nobody but the school committee can update policies or make policies or modify policies, but they can recommend.
Mr. Duvall?
Can we insert the word recommend updates to?
Yes, that's what my
So
suggestion is.
your motion,
Yes.
you're making a motion?
Yes,
Your motion is to, the district wellness committee will recommend updates?
yes, that's all it is.
Or modify the wellness policy
Yes,
based on the results?
yes.
That
Okay?
would have to be modification.
Should we just go ahead and correct it all the way through? The district wellness committee will recommend updates for modification
Yes,
To
Of
wellness
the-
policy.
yes.
will recommend updates for modification to the wellness policy.
Better, yeah.
Yes,
So the district wellness committee will recommend updates for modification to the wellness policy based on the results. Is that your motion?
yes, it is.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that amendment? All
Yes.
those in favor,
No,
yes,
I-
ma'am? Discussion?
I was on the policy subcommittee for that, and I would say that that was an oversight. Had I seen that, I would have asked for that change, because Sharon is correct that the wellness committee should be making recommendations, and we appreciate all the work that Melissa and the Wellness Committee and Sharon did for this policy, because they did a great deal of work. It was extremely helpful to have a draft that we could review. So I just want to give you guys credit for that. Thank you. But she is correct that it is our purview to actually, change the policy. So my apology for missing that. I should have seen that. I usually see things like that. Sorry. That's my
Stop your rest. All right, further discussion on that amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That one's unanimous. All right, so moving along on the wellness policy. Would anybody care to make a motion to approve the policy as amended with the 2 amendments?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. In a second, any further discussion? Mr. Duvall?
I just want to know what school serves fried vegetables.
Fried okra? Georgia?
Yeah, fried okra.
In the South.
Go in the South and get some fried okra. Further discussion on this policy? Does anybody need clarification on the 2 amendments, not 3, but we only had 2 amendments approved? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That one is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the end-of-year survey. Mr. Carpenter?
Just a quick announcement, Mr. Hirschfield will be helping me launch our annual end-of-year survey tomorrow, so we'll have that to hopefully present some results here. But we also, each year, pass the building level feedback off to each of the principals who, at their school at their school council meetings, go and take those, and that becomes a piece of data that informs ultimately that next school improvement plan.
Very good. Thank you. That is the end of our reports and discussions. Subcommittee reports. I am 99.9% sure there has been no subcommittee since last Thursday. Seeing none, move on to superintendent's report. Mr. Carpenter.
Just a quick thing. I'll put this out in emails sort of repeatedly over the course of the summer, just reminding people, but we do have school start time changes coming in September. I know it's on the website, but we'll also just kind of put it out there so that families remember, what's happening. So it's 7:45 is what we anticipate the start time to be for the elementary schools. Whether we can fine-tune that and move it closer to 8 o'clock will really depend on when the bus company develops those schedules, which doesn't happen until the middle part of August. And then for the middle and high school, 8:45 is sort of the locked-in start time for the school and high schools.
Ms. Ryder.
You just said that the bus companies would be developing the routes in August. Could we have them do it sooner? Because they should have all the data. I know all the questionnaires have gone out before the end of school.
Well,
is there an issue with them doing it sooner?
I think it's a process of developing the routes, and then they go and they test the routes. So it's a process that takes them a while. So I anticipate that's what they'll be doing throughout July, and giving us, they typically give us draft routes. We give them some feedback. It goes back and forth a little while before the routes get released out to everybody.
Okay, so that's like 5 to 6 weeks. You don't think there's any way to shorten that? I mean, it would be good to know if it's going to be 7:45 or 8. For me, for my son, that's a big difference. If there's going to be change, and I think parents would appreciate knowing that.
You're referencing the change in the start time or the change in the bus schedules?
Both. I don't know, it's worth maybe asking them, if you would, please, just ask if they could do it sooner. Thank you. That's all.
Just other quick hits. I'll also just put out something to parents, encouraging them where possible to sort of loop back to some teachers. And I can just kind of, from my own superintendent/dad perspective, I thought one of the sweetest things this past Sunday was to hear 2 children start to, I think, go through on some level a bit of a grieving process of, teachers that they've had and really thoroughly enjoyed this past year and what it's meant to them. And I think I'm in a lucky position that for each of those teachers, I was able to kind of go around over the last couple of days and have a face-to-face conversation with those teachers and really thank them for, for what they've done and how they've touched, 2 lives. And I think that sometimes in education, the kudos are scarce in between, and I think it's an opportunity, as we close out years to just let individuals know, what sort of impact they had. Last thing I just want to share is today we had the bids came in on a building perspective. The bids came in to seek out a electrical, mechanical, forensic engineer to look at this facility and what might be some of the root causes, some of the electrical issues that oftentimes plague the HVAC system. So we will be convening the building committee because the low bid that came in is a little beyond my capacity as superintendent to unilaterally say, yes, we're going to move forward with this proposal, but we should be able to launch that process in the next couple weeks, and hopefully what will come out of that is a report that will at least give us some guidance on, is there something that we can ask the contractors to do with regard to the electrical systems that make up Monomoy Regional High School to understand what are the gremlins in the system. So more reports to come in the never-ending HVAC saga.
Ms. Ryder?
So considering this was a new building, this isn't covered by whoever built the building? I mean, it seems like if this has been a problem since the beginning, correct?
It's the answer is some of it could be covered by warranty, but I think it's you need somebody to go and really understand what's at the root cause, and which is it a power issue? Is it a manufacturer defect? And that's something that's beyond any individual here sitting at the table. So it's really just trying to get the right parties. But we did have 3 bidders that bid on this who have the expertise to give the building committee and ultimately the school committee some guidance on how to move forward.
Ms. Ryder?
So theoretically, depending on what they find, we would have to initially pay for this engineering person to figure out what's going on. But depending on what they find, it may be covered by warranty, including the engineering fees, correct?
It could be.
Could be. We don't know until we figure out what it is, I'm assuming. But would that be a correct assumption, that it could be covered, including those engineering fees?
And we're at the end of a project. So there's only a small amount of money left that the district is retaining that we have for leverage. But before we fully close out the project, this is sort of the last step that the building committee wanted to exercise before closing out a project. When afterwards you have no financial leverage, and all you really are left with is can you potentially litigate, but you can't litigate unless you have some sort of evidence, or somebody has to help build the case, and again, that's what you need an expert for. So
just a really quick question, just how much is that's retained? I don't remember. I know we saw it before previously. It's been a while now.
$30,000.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Stout?
Sorry. When we built this model school, and did the model schools before us use the same contractors for these?
I think each school uses different contractors, so you end up getting a bid spec around a HVAC unit. In this case, I think the architect built a bid spec around something I think that was called an Aon, was the manufacturer. And Train put forth a product that was determined by the consultants to be an equal, and that's what was used in the construction of this. So they'll be looking at the units. I suspect that they'll be looking at the wiring in the building going to the units. They'll be looking at the power that's coming off the transformer. So they'll be looking at sort of everything that could impact the units to come up with some recommendations.
Well, when we find out where the problem is, some leverage might be that they might want to be recommended again to work in other schools for these building projects.
That's something that the building committee does do. They ultimately provide feedback on each of the different contractors and subcontractors as part of the closeout process.
That's fabulous.
Anything further, Mr.
That's it.
Carpenter? All right, so we have reached the end of our agenda, as our action item was to approve the wellness policy. Therefore, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone dare abstain? Thank you very much. We adjourn at 9:05. Have a good evening.
What happened to
This is where you're from. I said, yeah. He said, so he said, oh.